All right.
What's up,
Hello.
people?
What's up? How's it going?
It's going, man. It's going.
Tim, I've been saying this for weeks. Today, we got the greatest, most anticipated sports video game deep dive of all time. And it lived up to the hype.
It definitely lived up to the hype. I can't wait to talk about this. We mentioned this last week that anytime any major information goes live about the game, we would definitely do something or talk about it within a timely fashion. I think now is a really good time to talk about it.
Yeah.
We decided to go live, just to kind of give some feedback, hear what you guys have to say. I don't. Are we gonna pay some bills right quick? Do we want to pay the bills right quick,
Yeah,
or
we
do
won't
we?
put the banners up, but we'll pay the bills. First off, let's do a proper introduction. Welcome to the Texas Longhorn Fan Battle Podcast. My name
Yeah,
is Harish, and this is my guy, Tim Wayne.
yes,
What's
sir.
up, Tim? Man, we are brought to you by fanbattlesports.com, where you can get the latest and greatest of the AFC South, including Colts, Texans, Titans, and the Jaguars.
Yes,
If
sir.
you want to start your own podcast, hit the contact us link, provide us with all your information, get the latest episodes, stories for around the league, stories about every team, fanbattlesports.com. Please follow us on YouTube. We have just hit 50 subscribers, so thank you guys very much. I know 50 doesn't sound like a lot, but to us, that's quite a bit. So we really appreciate all the follows, all the support. Make sure to like the video, comment, be interactive here. We've got a lot to talk about, and I like Tim. I just don't want to hear both of us talking for the next however long we're going to talk. I want you guys to interact, comment, whether you're on Twitter, you're on YouTube, comment and be interactive with the show. fanbattlesports.com, and of course follow us on Twitter. We just hit 2,600 followers on Twitter, and we appreciate it. And of course on TikTok is going crazy right now with all the videos over the last couple days. We posted a video a few days ago of Quinn Ewers throwing a beautiful deep ball in the in the Peyton Manning the Manning Passing Academy that really got my insides fluttering a little bit. It was very awesome to see the trajectory. He looks healthy. His shoulder looks good, and he put that ball right on the money in that video.
Yep.
And we of course posted all the rankings and all that good stuff. So make sure to follow us also on TikTok. All righty, Tim. First and foremost, before we get started, I want to talk about just the opening scene on the and we look, this is not a lot of this is going to be like Longhorn fan battle related. It's
Right.
not going to have the Longhorn, or it's not going to have the Texas Longhorns, and I'm completely okay with that.
Yeah.
This is solely focused on college football 25. We will not be talking about the Longhorns. We will do that and we will do that in our normal Thursday show.
Yep.
But I want to show you something real quick.
Yeah, for sure.
And I think this is a great place to start. And this is what it's going to look like for Texas when you select Texas as your favorite school. For me, just because of how cool it is, I might change schools from time to time just to see what different ones look like. But I want to start here. I want to start with this graphic right here. And this is the first time the public has seen this. And this looks really fucking cool.
This looks really good.
Really cool.
I think we mentioned this in our Dynasty group chat. This is very nostalgic in a sense.
Yeah.
I don't know if you can remember back, but this kind of reminds me of NCAA 2006, where
Yep.
where you moved into your college dorm. You had the fingers and the pictures and the tickets and stuff like that, but it was just in a dorm room setting.
Yeah.
And it's like they took those things and just kind of brought that out and put more attention on those things. So I remember if you did good enough and you got on the Sports Illustrated cover, like, and you played a couple years, or played throughout the year, you would see your Sports Illustrated cover like on a wall, like pinned up
Yep.
on a wall. And of course, you had your banners and your fight-ons and stuff like that. Whatever team that you picked, of course, you would have those colors. So you pick Clemson, like USC, Texas, and so on. You would see, and this reminds me of that, which is really, really good, because it's just, I just, the fact that feels like they're just giving us little sprinkles of what used to be. You know what I'm saying? And I
Yeah.
like.
I think they purposely showed this off today.
Yeah,
Because
for
it's
sure.
interesting. What we don't see here, interestingly enough, is Road to Glory, right? We don't see the Road to Glory option because it's not. This is the home, right? So it goes to like what you've most recently played and what it's recommending. Which Dynasty mode is the game mode that is going to drive this game. It is going to be the game mode that this game has always and will always be built off of, is Dynasty mode. So very, very cool to see a lot of this. The UI in general and the screens just look very clean. And this looks very nostalgic, as you said. So I really wanted to start there. But let's dig into the deep dive itself. If you guys don't know, this document is about 80 pages and 10,000 or 20,000 or however many thousand words long. I've not read through the whole thing, but I've watched people read through the whole thing. It was like, and Tim is gone. So I've watched through the whole thing. I've watched a couple content creators kind of go through it and highlight it, and one of them actually did the whole thing. So I watched the whole video. And the first thing that comes to mind is when you play this game mode, you are going to have everything that you used to have, and then just kind of up it up a little bit more, right? A lot of the stuff is either taking elements of past games and putting them together, taking what is done in past games and kind of highlighting it out even more. If you guys have seen the deep dive and you read the deep dive, really a lot of what's shown out in this is recruiting. That's a huge piece of this. Coaching carousel is also a huge piece of this. And you really can tell that they put in a lot of work to try to make this as realistic but not difficult, all at the same time. So I know we're waiting for Tim. I don't know. He probably just lost his internet connection. So real quick, we'll just go through this real quick. There's three main focuses in the Dynasty mode, right? Building your coach, building your program, and delivering the world of college football. And really what they've done to do this is, as you guys know, your coach is very, very an integral part as Tim returns. I was just talking about how they've taken a lot of different nostalgic pieces and kind of highlighted them out even more. Huge on recruiting, obviously adding in the transfer portal. We'll talk about the college football playoff layout, which looks really cool, and all the polls and the UI just in general across the entire game. It's just been really cool to see. So yeah, like I was saying, three main focuses: build your coach, build your program, and deliver the world of college football. Those are the three highlights of the three goals of the Dynasty mode. And we're not going to go through this whole document. We'll touch. I do want to show a few screenshots. This is one of EA's buddy boy, and Colorado. Of course, you see if you're Colorado State, just how clean this is. It just makes everything that you have to do in this mode that much more simpler. There's not as many options. You play your game, you go to your top stories, you go to the recruiting menu, or you go to the next week. And then there's all these other things off on the other stuff. A lot of the things they wanted to highlight here is just what the plays call, the focus of this game is obviously a rivalry game, so it's definitely important. You have your weekly to-do list, which is a list that is being shown here as well, where you play your game. And just the color scheme of the team that you're using and how it matches. Obviously, in the top right hand corner, you can see who your coach is, their level. I don't know what the C is. That is not something. I think it's like coach points. I think as you build your coaching skill tree, those are how you're going to see what your coach points are. And I think just to discuss coach points and how coaching is important. One of the things that they talked about is you're not going to be able to max every single skill tree out, and I think that's very important. If you look at let's take Stark for example. Stark has two very primary specialties when it comes to him being a coach, right? Obviously, recruiting is his number one specialty. He's very good at recruiting. He's really good at bringing players on. And yes, I know people like to panic around June, July when we don't get all the recruits that we want. That's okay. Well, we're going to be just fine when it comes to recruiting. Coach Stark is a master recruiter. It is his forte. Secondarily, he's very good at offense, right? That's what he's known for on the field was having dynamic offenses, lots of wide receivers, lots of speed, lots of options for the quarterback to be able to get the ball out. And you'll notice in your skill trees that's going to be very important, right? There's images here around the coach skill trees, and I'll find it real quick. Here you go. And I think just viewing this the way that they do is you can tell this particular coach, he's a motivator, which is basically a culture setter who's strong in player development. That's his specialty. That's his archetype. And below that, he's a master motivator. So in order to get to the next level of this archetype to take advantage of that next perk, he's going to have 5 players drafted, which he's already got 4, or he's already got that. And then he's got to get 50 points in the motivator skill tree, which you could see he's already spent 40, as you can see in the coach spider here. And again, the UI is just so clean in this. I think one thing to notice is the highlighted skill trees. So anything that is locked, just anything you do not have any put in skill tree wise, right? Anything that's highlighted is what archetypes you're using and what perks your coaches are using inside of those archetypes. And it kind of digs deeper into that. And I just think just another really cool way to display this. It brings like a pseudo RPG feel to this. And so I think this is going to be the blood and guts of your coach, right? Money B, what's up, bro? How you doing, man? This is going to be the blood and the blood, sweat, and tears of what your coach is. This is how you build your coach, and you're not going to be able to max everything out. You might get a few points in the other skill trees, but who you are and what you are is defined on what you define your archetype as. And one of the things they notice is there's 3 main paths. You can be motivator, which is what coach start, which this coach is a motivator, as you can see by his archetype down here. You can be a recruiter, which based on what I'm hearing about recruiting and how difficult it's supposed to be as a lower school, hint, hint, wink, wink. I don't know if it's going to be the right solution. If I'm at a smaller school and I'm starting off as a 1-star school, I'm building my coaching tree around and being a master recruiter because I want to be able to get players in as fast as possible, and I want to be able to develop them as fast as possible, and then we can worry about the tactician stuff later, which is the 3rd main priority skill tree.
And of course, you want to make sure that you get, from a standpoint of having a small school, if you're able to be a recruiter and you're able to get those bigger college or get those bigger stars in, of course, it's going to make a bigger impact on the field, right? Because those kids are going to stand out. Especially if they're better than what you have on your team and what you're playing against, especially in a small conference like the Sun Belt or the MAC, whatever conference that you may be in, especially if it's smaller, you get those bigger recruits in there. You may have an opportunity to make something, make things pop for you. Where you may have struggled in a rivalry game. You get 1 or 2 players on a defensive line or a linebacker or even a quarterback, that changes the trajectory of your entire team. Maybe you're not able to get the quarterback, but maybe you're able to get the skill player, on your defense, or maybe you're able to get a skill player on your offense. That changes a lot of things as well. Because if you don't have the great of a quarterback, but you're able to, maybe get medium passes off with a really good wide receiver, that makes a big difference. So, and then to kind of piggyback off that, they're talking about how you can pair your players with specific recruits. That's amazing because that was not a thing. So yeah, man, this is really, really deep. This
Yeah,
is really, really deep.
I think it's deep, but I also think it's not complicated. It's very
Oh no,
straightforward.
it didn't feel like it. No,
And
not
I
at all.
also think it opens up for there's not a wrong way to do this. And I think that's the other thing, right?
Right,
Not every football coach in out of the 134 schools that we have is the same coach because that
right.
wouldn't be any fun, right?
No,
You
no,
know,
no.
Sark is not going to be the same as Nick Saban, right? And
Right.
Nick Saban is not the same as whoever hell Lincoln Riley. Now Lincoln Riley and Sark are fairly similar, right? But then Brent Venables isn't the same as Sark.
Right.
I mean, I'm just rattling out names.
Right.
Dan Lanning is not the same as Sark. They have Dan Lanning is going to be your motivator. He's the guy that's a big motivator guy, but Sark is a huge recruiter,
Right.
and this is aimed to kind of show that there's different ways to, and they both run very, very successful programs, right?
There's
Oregon
different
is. We'll
ways
talk
to
about
skin a
this
cat, baby.
Thursday. They're toasting everybody. So, I think the second thing that's really, really cool, and this kind of shows the coaching abilities. You could have hybrid coaching abilities within a single skill tree, and it's noticed here within, right? So this person is a master motivator, but he's got some other things in here that's allowing him to probably deep dive into things like on the field to help him do well. And I think that's something important to call out as you could have. You can have different motivators. You can have a hybrid coach that's really good at two different things. What you're not going to do, and what they wanted to avoid, is that you're not going to master all six, main skill trees.
Right.
This piece right here is very, very important. Just like in the real world, your head coach is only one piece of your coaching staff. Your offensive and your defensive coordinator are going to be just as important, if not more important, than your head coach. And I think that's an emphasis that they had in the deep dive and in the videos in the video itself.
Right.
It's very important that you find coordinators that complement yourself for two reasons. Number one, that's how it works in real life, right? Sark has a good defensive coordinator, and he has an offensive coordinator that kind of is not really the offensive coordinator, but is the offensive coordinator,
like
right?
the face.
Yeah, he's like the face of the. But the interesting thing about this is you cannot change your offensive and defensive coordinator skill trees, and I think that's very interesting.
So that means you gotta pick and choose your battles too.
Yeah. What's important to you? Which coordinator is going to have the biggest impact and help complement what you're trying to bring to the program?
I'm interested to see, and of course, as we get closer to the game, I feel like we'll get more information. When we start these dynasties, and when you start out with these dynasties, based on what team you pick, do you go in with a coaching staff already set in place based on your coach, or do you start anew? I'm going to assume, and again, I don't necessarily know because I haven't played the game. I'm going to assume that you have the opportunity to either play as you are with the coaching staff that you have in place already, or you can start out as a new coach and go from there. And so if you pick a Texas and you go in, you can either play with Coach Sark, which would not be named Coach Sark because they're not in the game. So whatever the generated name for that coach specifically, can you play with that, or are you gonna start out from scratch? I do remember them doing this in Madden. I'm gonna assume that they're gonna do this and implement that feature in college football as well.
Yeah, I think you should be able to do both, right? If you want to take whatever skill tree is already there and utilize the skill tree of the coach that exists, I'm pretty sure you can do that. Or you can just create a new coach and start from scratch. Right. Now, what you have to do now, which is important, is understand, is that the right decision to make? If you're going to go take over Texas, and let's just say the coach is like a level 50, right? I don't know what he is. Are you willing to drop 50 levels and start over as a coach, taking over a Power 5 program? Do you want to be Tom Herman or do you want to be Coach Sark?
Right. Right.
And I think that's something. Or do you want to be, Charlie Strong, right?
Right.
And that's a decision you're going to have to make.
And that makes a big decision too, because based on what you pick as far as coaches and assistants on your staff, that can affect who you get as players. That can affect your recruits. That can affect the players that you have on your team. Now, people forget your players can transfer if they don't necessarily like what's going on or how they're being used or what is going on within the program. If you have an all-star receiver and you have a beefy offensive line and you feel more inclined to run the ball, and your offensive and your wide receiver ain't getting the love that he thinks she should get, that guy might leave.
Right.
He might leave, and that's another thing that they and I don't know if you touched over this, Serge. I had to step away, but within the deep dive, they talked about how you have to tend to your players that are your own players, because they could jump in that portal. That's another thing that we all have to take into account. You can't just go into the game and just not pay attention to your own team. And that's what happens in real. That is very, very good to add that feature, because, again, normally, in previous games, we didn't know that a player was going to transfer until the end of the year.
Right.
And that player, hey, I want to transfer. I'm not getting enough playing time. And either because he's been redshirted, or you just didn't give him a lot of love that he thought he should have. And so, with that being said, you had that one opportunity to persuade him to stay. And he may pick yes, no, or let me think about it. That was one of the ones that I remember specifically, because I'm currently in a dynasty on NCAA on the PlayStation 3. And that was one of the things. It's like, hey, I need some time to think about it. You advance the next week, you come back, and again, you want to persuade that person and they give you a list of options. Hey, we're a championship team. We're right there on the cusp. Guarantee more playing time. I believe one of the other things was like a proximity game. A game in your state and stuff like that. You had just a ton of things that you could choose from to get that player to try to stay. And now you have to do that throughout the year, throughout the playing year. And that's pretty awesome. That's really, really dope.
Yeah, and I think there's a section in here around roster management and how important that is. And
Right.
so we'll touch on that. But I think the other thing that I want to call out here is I think we mentioned this already, right? Your coordinators will automatically progress their archetypes and abilities. You don't get to pick what those archetypes and abilities are. They will, if they level up, they essentially get to pick their own skill trees.
Right.
And you've just got to figure out what meshes well and what doesn't. You will not be able to control their abilities they purchase, nor will you be able to respect your coordinator's abilities.
That's awesome.
Yeah, and I think Money B calls it here. The game portion management is going to be awesome. This is the intuitiveness, really what it's like to be a head coach. And I think they mentioned multiple times within the deep dive, they've talked to head coaches. They've talked to former head coaches. They've talked to offensive and defensive coordinators to really understand what is it you guys do and how can we bring that into the game. And they've mentioned this a lot of times, and you'll see a lot of that in recruiting. And one of the things they mentioned was like, if you haven't read the blog, one of the things they mentioned was recruiting. There's certain guys that have certain types that they're really good at, but you're not going to know immediately what those specialties are. You have to dig. You have to like talk to these guys. You might have to send them a DM, might have to check their social media, and then you have to do the right things when they're on campus.
Right.
And sometimes if you do that, if you have specific traits, sometimes you'll be able to unlock what their hidden dev trait is. And I love the way to do hidden dev traits, and we'll talk about that when we get to impact players. But I think coaching abilities I think this is very cool. This gets a really, really cool RPG element to it. And I just read this red and this yellow and this green. This is what all three of your coaches have at the same time. So one of these trees is probably the head coach, which is the red, which is probably the motivator, which is what the head coach is. Yeah. coordinator is probably strong in this area right here, and then maybe the defensive coordinator is somewhat strong here. So you can kind of see what the balance is within the coaching staff, which is really cool.
Right. So you see where it says where it has that purple and it has that red in the middle. Those are your other two assistants where their arrows are pointing at and their abilities. If with your abilities stacked on top of it, if it's pointing in the master motivator, that's 3 times the power of you being a master motivator.
Oh, so, that's right.
Yep. So it's that, which is great because
is cool.
Right. It gives you more of an, because again, me and you in a dynasty, we're not going to know what each coach is going to do. We're not going to know that. So if I'm on your team, or if I'm going to your house, Harish, and I'm playing in a really, really big game, and let's say I have 1 or 2 more players that are better than yours, your motivation could like motivate your entire defense to shut this big time running back down, or this big time whatever down. It's so in deep and in depth. But like you said, it's also very simple. This seems very, very simple. Very like it's not overly. I think this is geared towards the hardcore dynasty players, but also simple enough for just a casual player to just play along as well. And that's one of the things I've noticed in this deep dive. It's not super, super complicated.
No.
And that's a good thing, because it could be overwhelming.
It could be. And I think the other thing is it's not so complicated that it gets the casual gamer will just be able to do what the casual gamer wants, right? It keeps it simplistic to the point that if you're just casually wanting to play something, you could still get into the dynasty mode and probably just do these things just to do them and check them off your list, and it's probably not going to have that huge of an impact. But there's still certain like gameplay elements that will be impacted, and you'll just learn that over time, right? And that's just something that's cool. But then if you're like us, where we're going to be on this game every single day, we'll be able to sink deep into it and really learn about it. Of course, some of these things are all the same, right? School expectations are determined. So when you sign on as coach, you'll have expectations. Most of the time when you get started, it's like, I need you to win X amount of games. I need you to win a conference championship, make the college football playoff, or win the Natty. And then you'll basically we'll get into the coaching carousel next, because I think that's just the next part of the deep dive. As your contract ends, the school will evaluate whether they extend your contract or if you're offered an extension. Now, this is a really cool thing. If you're offered an extension, it automatically applies 2 years. So it auto accepts this so that you don't forget. You don't inadvertently build a program that you built as a 1-star up to a 4-star, and you forgot to re-sign your contract.
Right, because that could happen in the last games.
Yeah, and it prevents you from forgetting to do that because you're so deep into it, and then you lose all your progress, right? So that's very, very smart. And then your coordinators will also auto accept. The cool thing is you can fire your coordinators at any time.
Right.
And if you fire your coordinators and hire a new coordinator, there's only a certain time in the game where you can re-up your coordinators, and that's during the conference championship week, I believe. So during conference championship week, that's essentially when the coaching carousel happens. And because we're talking about coaches, we'll talk about the coaching carousel. The coaching carousel essentially starts the first week of bowl week, which is when it starts in real life, and it goes all the way through the national title game. And essentially, this is where you can hire and fire your coordinators. The only time you can do that. You yourself could check and see if there's any other offers that are available to you. And then you can kind of see the pieces fall, the dominoes fall as bowl games happen, as the national championships happen, things along those lines. Right. Now, the really cool piece about the coaching carousel is how they did it. And it goes over, I think they said over the span of 5 weeks, if I'm not mistaken. Mm-hmm. And they showed this really cool screenshot right here, and this is kind of what it looks like, right? You can kind of see here. These are all the offers this current user has. So they have an offer to be whoever this is. I want to say that's Washington's. That's not Washington State. That's is that Wyoming?
It could be Wyoming.
Okay, Toledo and the head coaching tag right there. Memphis, which is what you see here, and then Bowling Green, and you can see everything about that school there, right? Which this is very cool, and you see this a lot. And we can make it bigger. Awesome, we'll do that. Whoops, wrong screen. Sorry about that. And wrong screen again. All right. Okay. Hopefully that's a little bit easier to see. Maybe it's not, and maybe I'm just.
It's easier.
So here you see a lot of different pieces of information, right? This tells you where the school's currently at, what they're currently rated, what they were last year, and then a really cool thing is this is what the program is looking for in their coach. They want somebody that's a strategist as their main archetype, somebody who runs a spread offense. They don't want somebody that's gone to the school before, which I think is really cool. And they want somebody who runs a base 3-4-3 defense, right? This is information about the previous head coach, what their scheme was, what their archetype was, and kind of where they're going there. And then this is the top 3 candidates. We've never seen this level of information in the coaching carousel. This level of information is very cool.
That's
and just
crazy because if you're all fighting for the same
you'll be able to see if you're in an online dynasty, you'll be able to see if you and your buddy are fighting for the same job. and essentially and this is the thing, it becomes a foot race at that point because you and your buddy can both be offered the job. And I think I read somewhere is you don't have to wait for the commissioner to advance. If you see an offer and you like it and you click it before your friend clicks it, you get the job. So you could actually go through the coaching carousel yourself without the week actually being advanced.
And that's nuts. That's all out chaos.
Well, that's the whole point. Because here's the thing, like in real life, if you and I are offered the same coaching job, number one, I don't know that you're offered that coaching job.
Right.
So if I'm taking the job, they could have offered it to the both of us, but neither of us know the other person has it. I could have just accepted it, and because you wanted to take too long and I'm ready to roll, and they're like, okay, cool, we're ready to roll too. And then boom, that's it. You're now the coach.
I'm just thinking about like the larger dynasties and the dynasties like ours that are animated.
Yeah.
Like the amount of trash talking that is going to happen. If you're not paying attention, that's the thing. You have to pay attention. It also becomes a thing of availability. And that is a thing that is also very, very, very clutch. If you're not available and you're not paying attention, your friend could steal your job right from out from under your nose. And
you'll probably never know. Or you might know and you're just too late to it, right? Because
you're
then you
get to the party.
What I'd be very curious about is when the coaching changes are done. If there's a coaching change screen, I wonder if it gives you the same information and then shows who took the job, because then you could then you could go in and see, oh, I know that Tim took the job at Memphis. Oh shoot, I had no idea Memphis even offered me the job because I wasn't paying attention. That would be cool. I don't know if it does that, but that would be cool.
This game, dude. The way that this game is going to have my absolute undivided attention. I've looked at so much stuff. I've looked at getting new headsets, controllers.
I need to get a headset. I need to get a new Xbox headset.
Just the amount of stuff, because I know for a fact that our Xbox Live parties are going to be something that we haven't seen in a long time.
Unprecedented. We're very excited for this. We're so excited. So I think this next piece right here is talking about okay, so here it talks about it. It says I'll read this really quickly. Starting week 1, you can hire new coordinators if you have an open position. When you go to hire a new coordinator, you'll be presented with a curated list of candidates. These coaches are chosen for you based on the needs of your school. That logic is used to determine the list that is similar to the AI school logic to determine the top candidates. When looking at a candidate, you'll be able to see their current school, archetype, active archetype, coach level, and what schools are interested in them. these are the schools that you would be competing with if you made them a job offer. You can also view the coach's talent tree, so you can drill down more deeply and see whether or not they would be a fit for your staff. I think that's very cool. So when you go, if you were to fire a defensive coordinator or an offensive coordinator, this provides you the list of new options that you might have. You can go see, first off, what other schools are interested in them, which I thought was really cool. So if you look at Trevor McKee here, he runs a 4.3. He's a level 9. Looks like, he has a head coaching offer from he has a head coaching offer from Louisiana Tech, but he has 2 other DC offers from Purdue and Houston. You, as the head coach, can then go in and view his talent tree and see how he fits into what you do before you even offer him the job. Right. And then you can hire the coach. And it essentially comes down to him on whether he accepts it or not. You can get snubbed. He might say, you know what? I don't want to be at DC anymore. I want to go take this La Tech head coaching job.
Right. That also goes to show, like, you could completely flip, based on your coaching, on your strategy, based on your DC and your OC, you can flip. Like, let's say you don't want a motivator. You don't want another motivator there. Let's say you want another, I don't know, whatever, strategist or whatever. If that's what you need, or you feel like that's what you need, then you can go and get that person. If you're lacking in that area, that is one thing that is also very dope, is that you're gonna have to go ahead and pick your poison. You know what I mean? If you, like you said, you can't be everything. You can't necessarily be every single coach or every single archetype. You can only pick 3 or one of the 3. So like, it's gonna be very interesting. I'm excited to see how that works out. I just, the pros and the cons of how it affects your team is going to be the main thing for me. Because I don't want anybody dipping out because I fired my defensive coordinator or I fired my offensive coordinator. And I'm also interested to see what happens if, let's say, if you fired that defensive coordinator is a level what?
19.
19.
Highlighted?
Right. Yeah. So let's say I had a level 11 defensive coordinator, win a couple games, go through a season, decide I want to upgrade my defensive coordinator, so I fire the other one and I level up and get a level 19. How does that affect my team?
Right. The other thing to note on here is the pipelines. Pipelines have completely changed in NCAA 14. No longer is it just single state pipelines. If you look at Danny White here, he's his pipeline is not just Texas, it's North Texas. Right. And North Texas has their own specialty in recruits that they're really good at. If you look at Trevor McKee, his pipeline is East Texas, which is Houston. And they are really good at big body receivers. That's where a lot of those big recruits are. And if his play style matches that, his archetype matches like a recruiting archetype where he can bring in guys, that might be a really good space for him, because he can help bring in some of the best of the best in now a bigger conference in the Big 12. So these are like different things that you need to look at. It's not just about, hiring a guy and setting it. Like these coaches matter now, which I think is a very, very cool, more immersion into the game that they've added into here.
For sure.
And we'll talk more about pipelines here in a second. And then, of course, once you offer them, you can see that the offer is pending, because they have to accept the offer. This is not just, you like in the old days, like in Madden, you can just hire the guy and he's there. No, that's not how it works anymore. They have to actually want to come, and they have to actually accept your offer there, which is, I think, is another just really cool thing that they've added to it. I want to talk about recruiting in its own thing, because that's its own beast, and kind of my thoughts on recruiting.
All right.
I want to talk about this my school thing real quick, which I think is really, really cool. Again, just another piece of this game that's just really immersive and really, like, truly. There's a lot of information here that I think is really cool. So, real quick, this is just highlighting, Stanford, obviously, they're good at a lot of different things. You could see what they're good at. And this screenshot right here shows you the My School screenshot, which is similar to this. and it
Right.
really breaks down what this school is really good at. So obviously Stanford's an A plus academic prestige.
Right.
They're an A as far as conference prestige. They're probably a C in stadium atmosphere. They're a C plus in championship contender. A B. So these ratings matter not only for your school now, and they're 3.5 star. You could be a half-star prestige now. So it's not just 3 star to 4 star.
Yeah.
You could actually go from 3 to 3.5 star before you hit that 4 star prestige.
Which is something that's very new because we didn't have that back then. It was either you were you were either a 3 star or 4 star, like you just said. That that to see that they've kind of dwindled it down to where the progression is not as fast as it used to be back in the day.
Yeah.
You used to be able to go in, take a team like Arizona, win a couple of conference championships, maybe get a bowl game. Next thing you know, you jumped up to 4 or 5 stars within 2 seasons. That's
Yep.
not the case with this. For y'all that don't know, back when NCAA was out, Stanford was like a 6 star. So you can see over the last couple of years that they haven't necessarily had the greatest of the seasons. They haven't been winning as much as they did in the past, and that's starting to show because again, you can see with the stadium, which I'm going to assume is attendance. Head coaching isn't there. They haven't really had a head coaching. They haven't really had a standout head coach in a while. Also, they just haven't been able to compete for a championship, and that's showing. So a lot of these bigger programs like a Stanford, you could really go in with a Stanford and make some improvements if you can. If you can get the guys in there and get the right staff, you can make some improvements. We don't know how fast, but based on what we're seeing, it doesn't seem like this is a thing that you do overnight, and that's what I love about the game. You're actually going to have to put some time and some effort into the game in order for you to get your school back on track, or get the school that you choose on track. Whether
Yeah.
it's to propel you from a small school to a bigger school, or from a bigger school to your dream school. That's what it seems like it's going to be.
So I wanted to just call out what those different things meant. So it's academic prestige, athletic prestige, brand exposure, which is essentially NIL. Right. Remember, they're not going to have NIL in this version of the Dynasty mode because it was changing too much, and when they were implementing it, there was just too much
in the
going
middle
on.
of the year.
Yeah. So there's just too much happening. And then there's campus atmosphere, championship prestige. I think this is coaching coach stability. So your coordinators,
classic.
You want to make sure you're going to be there. Your coordinator is going to be there. Your coaching prestige, your conference prestige, how much playing time you're going to get, how much pro potential. And some of these, which I think is really cool, some of these can get advanced based off winning, putting guys in the NFL, all that cool stuff. Some of these things cannot change.
I have a question. Do you think the firing and the hiring of coaches multiple times within your dynasty, do you think that it would negatively affect your coaching stability if you're not winning, or if you are winning? Do you think that would affect it? Let's say you have Stanford, right? So you got a good head coach. You got a head coach that you like. However, you don't like the defensive coordinator, so you fire the defense coordinator. You bring the new guy in. You win a game. Let's say, I don't know how many games they won last year. I'm going to assume that they won 4 or 5 games last year. So you get more than whatever that it is when you sign the contract. Let's say your contract is they want you to get 8 wins. Let's say you swing for the fences, you win 9, and you get to a pretty good bowl game, right? You don't win the conference, but you get to a bowl game, right? You win in that bowl game. Does your coaching stability from that point, does it increase or does it decrease? And let's say you do that, and again, we're all talking about hypotheticals here. Let's say you find a better defensive coordinator the next year. You fire him and you do the same thing. Does that coaching stability, how positive or negatively does that impact you? That's a real crazy thing, because I'm not going to sit up here and say you're going to find a defensive head coach or a defensive coordinator every year, but again, with these bigger programs, though, especially the more you win, I would assume there's going to be more difficult decisions to make throughout the year and at the
Yeah.
end of the year. Do you pass up on a defensive coordinator that it eventually ends up being a head coach and ends up being at your rival like UCLA or whatever? Do you pass up, or do you actually let go of your defensive coordinator that you got now in hopes that that defensive coordinator that you're looking at is going to be better than what you got right now?
So based on the way this is worded, right, I think if you're changing coordinators often, that's not a good thing, because it says, because right here it says this is a reflection of the school's coaching staff. The head coach carries the most weight here, but coordinators are taken into account. So to me, what this says is basically, and it says that's coaching stability.
Okay.
So if you're constantly changing defensive coordinators, you don't have coaching stability.
Your stability is not going to be strong.
Right. And then it says each grade has a unique set of grading criteria. Playing time is graded on per player basis, players overall, or projected overall if they're a recruit, is compared to the team's roster to project how many years it will take for them to become a starter. That's going to be very important when it comes to recruiting. And these are the same things your recruits are going to be looking for. It's important to show here, what that looks like. So some of these things it says, it's like campus lifestyle, for example. This is a representation of the city and our surrounding and the area surrounding the campus, as well as the campus itself. This grade cannot be changed or impacted. So basically meaning wherever you pick, you better make sure that the people that you're recruiting are going to come to or wanting to come to that campus for the right reasons,
right,
because you have no way to influence that. You can't pick your school up and go to a different city, right? And then these other ones can be influenced. There's another one here that can't be influenced. Oh, academic prestige, the ranks of all universities based on real world academic rankings. This is cool. I think this is one of the cool. So your academic prestige is locked in, but it's based on how they actually perform academically in the real world, which I thought was really cool. Awesome. And then I think there's another one here.
Arizona State academic prestige, probably not that high.
Right. Athletic facilities. The grade measures the quality of athletic facilities for the program. Waterfalls and barbershops are a plus here, is what it says. So I thought that was really cool. And it just goes to show, like, in real life, you can't, unless you're upgrading your facilities, you can't, you can't change. The football coach has no way to change the academic prestige of a college. So that makes a lot of sense, right? The football coach has no way to change the city that they're in, because they're in where they're in. Some coaches are luckier to just be in other places than others.
Right.
Let's talk about recruiting, Tim.
Yes, sir. The game within the game.
This is the mainstay of the entire game, and I'll make this a little bit bigger so we can go through it. But essentially, the big takeaway here is recruiting is now done in 3 stages.
Mm-hmm.
And stage 1, it's essentially scouting. Stage 2 is where does it talk about the different stages? Oh, here we go. Stage 1 is discovery, right? So this is kind of where you're probably setting your board, doing a little bit of scouting, understanding who it is. The faster you learn about the prospect, the sooner you can decide whether or not to pursue them. Because remember, the prospect has certain abilities and certain things that they're looking at when they're coming in as well, right? So this is really just like getting a quick glance at who this person is, right? Figuring out if they fit your scheme, figuring out if what they're looking for is what you have as a college. Because at the end of the day, there's 3,500 recruits in every single recruiting class. Yep. You're not going to be able to get all 3,500. You only have 35 scholarships a year,
which is kind of crazy because 35 is a lot. Like, that's still a lot of recruits. I tend to kind of narrow it down, and this is just me. I don't see myself when this game comes out having 35 recruits on a board. That's a lot. I think I would try to find out, 20, 25 maybe. See what see what recruits are going to be on my end that I know for sure are going to be able to realistically get those students to come to my school and then go from there. Of course, I'll have one or two that I'll try to shoot for the stars and try to recruit. But as we go on, we'll talk about that. Like, it's going to be really, really hard to shoot for the stars on those bigger recruits.
So I think the one thing is insta recruits are no longer a thing, or insta commits, because there's actually two. If you notice, when a recruit commits, it's only a soft commit.
Right.
Right. It's only a verbal commit, right? They are not locked in until they sign. And they have to sign, and you get 2 signing days, just like you do in real life, right? You get the early signing period, and then you get National Signing Day, which is when things are not, which is essentially when that's final, and that's when they sign their letters of intent. It says here, discovery starts with the prospect identification. You can find prospects to recruits from the prospect list. The prospect list defaults to the recommended filter, which identifies recruits who would be a good fit for you. The recommended filter uses the same logic as the AI when they are identifying players to recruit. It takes into account your team position needs, what pipeline a recruit is from, a recruiter's interest in your school, and their star rating. So all those things we were talking about before, right? Your conference prestige, your coaches prestige, your campus atmosphere, all those things are taken into account. Right. And the recruits also have some sort of AI that's provided into them that matches them along with their archetypes, that matches them to make sure that they're finding the best programs for themselves.
Right.
And then you can filter the recruiting board. I love this. You can filter the recruiting board by a multitude of ways: position, player type, their state, the minimum star rating, their height, their weight. If they're a quarterback, you can filter by lefties and righties. That's so if you don't want a lefty in your school, then you can filter by that.
You know how many quarterbacks I've like recruited that were left-handed, and I just had to go in and like change it to a right-handed quarterback.
Oh, change him to a right hand, and you can't change him anymore. That's the thing.
Yeah,
because you can't edit. There's only minimum amount of things that you can edit, so you can't change it anymore. So that becomes important. And then their interest in your school, all right. And then there's just a screenshot of the prospect list. This again looks very neat, and I don't think anybody's talked about this. If you remember the old games, it was really hard to tell in the prospect list in your recruiting board what players were actually needs, because you had to go into a different menu to figure that out and go back and forth.
You had to back out, wait for that to load, and if you had autosave on, it would autosave every time you backed out of it, which would make it like really long. So bouncing back and forth between mini menus was really hard. You just had to, I got to a point at one point in time where we were playing like regularly where I just wrote it down, where I need X, Y, and Z. I need a quarterback, I need wide receivers, I need this, I need that, how many I had, and things like that. I think at one point in time on one of my old laptops, I think I even had a spreadsheet on just what was.
Used to use spreadsheets because they wanted to keep track of what they looked like, right? And where everything was. Now you can just tab over and you can just hit the little button down there. It says team needs. Right. You can go look at your roster in spreadsheet form, and you can see what you have, what class everyone was in, so freshman, sophomore, junior, senior, and you can also see what you needed and all those good things, which is, again, just quality of life improvements this is. So now when you go into your prospect list, they have the need tag, which tells you need this position, or you actually have needs in this position, which is, again, super cool quality of life improvement. Lots of really cool information here. Obviously, if they're a target, what their rank is, and we'll talk about rank here in a second when you go into the prospect view, which is really cool. Obviously, their name, what caliber they are, what their interest is in you, how far they are, and we'll talk about that in the recruit list, because that's going to be important too. And then what state and the pipeline. I don't think this is talked about enough. What pipeline they're in. Because I'm sure there's goals that are associated to this in order to increase the color codedness of this pipeline. So again, just lots of really cool information. And I think the transfer portal has the same amount of details.
Right.
Except that it's a much smaller. And then down here you can see what their deal breaker is, right? This guy, Prince Gee, a 5-star guy. Here it is. Here it is. Oh shoot. Hold on. I got it. Oh gosh, I gotta scroll down a lot. You still can't see it, but you can see that he's a 5-star guy. You can see what he's ranked nationally, what he's ranked in the state, and what he's ranked as a position coach.
That's crazy.
Which is awesome. Also, they use like a real world blue chip prospect list. So now your team is always you can see how many blue chip prospects your team is bringing in, which essentially is like high 4 stars, low 5 stars,
Right.
high 4 stars and above, which contribute to your blue chip rating. And then you can see what his deal breakers are. And for that guy, it was oh shoot. Where the hell did it go? Dang it. I keep zooming in and zooming out, and I keep losing where I'm at. But for him, it's a deal breaker. So if you his deal breaker is brand exposure. And so basically, if your brand exposure isn't at least a B-, you're locked out of this prospect, and you cannot. And this is one of those things that you can't make better unless you're like continuing to win and on national TV and constantly in the top 25 and winning national titles.
You do have one opportunity, from what I've understood, to persuade him, but
but you have to have that coaching tree. It's part of our coaching tree, the recruiting coaching tree.
Right.
So
if you don't have it, that's not going to be good for you.
Here it is. Team needs spreadsheet. So here you can take a really quick view of what your team needs are, how many you need, what you have, what you've signed, what you've targeted, which I think is really cool, and then what your current roster is, which is right here. And then on the right hand side, this is super cool. As you highlight each position, it'll tell you what everybody in that position is, what their current rating is. What this, again, just small quality of life things like this is just so cool. You can see what their overall is, what class they are, what their archetype is. That way you know what you have to look forward to. As you can see, this Michigan State one shows they got 4 quarterbacks on the roster. They've got 4 that are targeted. It probably shows the other 2 on the next screen. And then they have 1 sophomore, 1 junior, and 2 freshmen on their current roster. So again, just a really cool quality of life thing. Recruiting hours. This is what the actual page for the recruit looks like. As you can see, this particular recruit is currently down to his top 5. Anybody that's in black that's back here in their top 8 or below the top 5 line has been essentially locked out. So they can no longer recruit this person. You'll see if there's offers, and then when you go into the offers, you can see what they've done. Now, I don't know if you can do this for every school that's offered. That would be cool. I don't think you can. But for yourself, you can to remember what you've done with this recruit, because you only have X amount of hours. And we'll talk about hours here in a second, because again, a really cool thing. You can you've already pitched a soft skill to his house, and you've already pitched prove yourself, which is another soft sell. And it's made this guy put you up into the top 4 for this guy's school. And then here you can see a lot of different things for this guy. You can go in, you see his overview, what position he plays, what his tendency is, where he's from. He's currently in high school, his weight, his height. And then again, he's the number 3 national guy, number 1 in the state, number 1 in this position. Very simple stuff. And then down here, I actually just noticed this. It tells you at a high level what his deal breaker is. So you don't even have to go into the player menu. You can see it right here.
Yeah, no more tabbing. And that's a great feeling. Like you said, a quality of life thing for sure.
But these are the little things here that I think take from it takes from the difficulty of doing a lot of things, because everything is so condensed. Everything you need is in like 1 or 2 screens, right? And the other cool thing is these recruiting hours, and recruiting hours are essentially what you can use for like different tasks or whatever, right? Once you set it, that's all it is. You don't have to continue to set it every week, which I thought was very, very cool. Very smart. You can go in and update it yourself, but if you set it, it's not going to change unless you go in and change it.
Right.
Again, quality of life thing. The casual gamer being kept in mind is I can do this once all year. I can go check it every week if I want to. But beyond that, I don't have to do anything else.
You don't have to do anything. You can literally just play the game.
Yeah. The scouting menu again is really cool. Very similar to like draft class scouting in Madden. If you guys play Madden, you won't be able to see everything at first unless you actually spend time with the prospect. And then first, and then after you do that, you'll be able to see some of their attributes, whether it's what their catch and traffic is, what short we're running, maybe get some of what their actual ratings are for some of these things. But you won't be able to see everything, right? What you can't see. Huh?
Do you remember what it used to be like if you did play with a big school? You could just literally go in there and just
see everything.
And see everything. You could just offer a scholarship or just go in and, I mean, of course, you only have 3 hours, but you could literally go in 3 hours, an hour on the top 3 guys that you wanted.
Yep.
And then find out what they are. If you had back then, you could actually, I believe you had the scouting boost if you had like the collector's edition. That was in 14 and 13. If you pre-ordered the game, you didn't have to pay for it, but you could really just go in there and just
pick whoever you want. Yeah, you can pick whoever you want.
You can offer a scholarship and it will automatically come for the most part. If you were Georgia or Alabama, Notre Dame, like you can't do that.
Yeah,
even with the bigger schools, you can't do that.
Yeah. Again, it just balances the game out. It makes it a little bit more realistic, but it also still makes it a lot easier. So, this, again, it's just very clean, right? It's easy to read. You know what you're looking at. It might take you some time to understand what everything actually does, but then once you understand it, it's easy peasy.
Do you feel like this is easier to, even not playing the game, but just based on the games that you played before, do you feel like this is an easier way to recruit? Do you feel like this is going to be easier for you to recruit? Because I know even now, like it takes me some time to do those recruiting, to fill out and look at those recruits, even though, I'm playing a 10-year-old game, a 10-year-old plus game. It's still very difficult to kind of navigate throughout that. Do you think that this will make it easier and faster to actually navigate throughout 20 plus recruits?
I don't know yet. I think initially it's going to be not easy because it's also new, right?
Right.
Because it is different, right? I think once you get the hang of it, I think maybe after like 2 or 3 years, I think you'll have a good understanding of how it works. The other thing to keep in mind is you've got to recruit throughout the entire season.
Right.
You've got to, like, for example, if you're not locked out right now, and let's just say your for this guy, your brand exposure goes down, you can get knocked out of the top. You could be in the top 3 and get knocked out because your brand exposure goes down.
Right.
So that's something else. So those like little things like that, you're always going to have to actively monitor. And that's just a matter of you just remembering. But if you know that my brand exposure is going to be up because I just continue to win, then you set it and forget it.
Right.
And then you noticed here, like here, you can see what is the other cool thing is they come with mental abilities and you can't change them.
That's awesome.
I love that. I think that's, again,
so what if you have a great player, but his mentality sucks?
Well, then you have to make sure and figure out that mentality works for your team. then maybe that guy with the great, but that happens in real life. Like,
maybe he's not on the field in a tight situation. Maybe you got somebody else out there.
Right. Maybe this guy as an athlete looks like he could be a wide receiver just based on what you know so far. Right. But he can't run block, which if you run a pro style offense, you need wide receivers that can block.
Right.
So is he a corner? His short route looks like it's pretty good. Looks like he's a team player, so that makes sense. So that's pretty good. But then you go here, and it says that he's just a natural. So this guy's just a baller based on what you know. But you don't know what his dev trait is. So you don't know how fast or how slow he's going to progress, which we'll talk about dev traits here in a second. So I think it creates that balance. But it also, again, it goes back to how do you want to build your team?
Right.
And then, of course, you have unscouted, partially scouted, mostly scouted. And then once you get to 100%, you get fully scouted. So those are the different levels of scouting that you have. So that's like 25, 50, 75, 100 is my guess.
Right.
This is some of the actions that you can do during the recruiting. So you can search the social media, and this is just the first phase. We haven't even gotten through anything else, right?
That's not
And this is just phase one.
That's phase one.
So phase one, search again, spending. You're trying to get to know this recruit to make sure they're a right, good fit for you. Spend time scrolling through the player's social media, DM the player. You can contact their family or friends, make a few phone calls, and learn a little bit about them. Or you can send the house, right? Send the recruiting coordinator, every coach in your staff, to resource you have after the prospect to gain as much influence with them as possible. And this is what helps with if there's a guy that you're really targeting that you're like, I absolutely have to get this guy, then you're gonna take a little more of an aggressive approach, right? Or if it's a guy that you think would be good, but you don't really need him, but it'd be nice to have, even if he's a 4 or 5 star guy, you might just search his social media or just shoot him a DM and just have a little conversation with him.
Well, and that's how the world works now.
Yeah.
Back then, or 10 years ago, even though we had the same platforms that we have now, it's a little bit different. Of course, the NCAA was in rule. They had more of a say-so in how things are going. Not so much now, but back then you could not. One, social media wasn't like the end-all, be-all of how you went and found an athlete as prominent as it is now. With apps like TikTok, Instagram, things like that, you could kind of create your own package and kind of just send it out to the world or send it out to coaches. The only reason why I mentioned that is because I've seen it and I've done it myself. I've helped somebody put some stuff together so that it can go out to coaches to help to get the notoriety that they want or that what they're looking for. You just couldn't do that back then. So the fact that they've implemented that now is actually really, really dope. It's paying attention to the details. It's the details within the game. This like what we always say in our own private dynasty is that there's always a game within the game. The recruiting is one thing. The game is one thing. Actually playing the game is one thing. But the recruiting is the game that everybody is more focused on. Honestly, in this game, I could care if I lose 2 or 3 games. As long as I'm able to get the recruits that I need to build my team, I'll be all right.
Yeah, that's what the whole premise of the mode is, right? It's you're not going to go in year one and win the national title. It's just not realistic, right? Especially starting at a small school, it's just not going to happen.
Right.
So you've got to make sure that you understand that's just the realism of it all. But these are all tools and things that you can use to help build your program. And Tim left again, and so stage 2 is going to be about actually having hard sells and soft sells. Awards the most influence. Choosing the correct pitch is ideal, but also has the largest penalty when wrong. Most useful when you know the recruit's ideal pitch or desperate, right? So again, you have to know whether a hard pitch is correct or whether a soft pitch is correct, right? You've got to know based on what you've learned in that first phase. You've got to know what to do in that second phase to make sure you're making the right pitch. And I think Tim's back. Tim, are you back? Okay.
Yes,
I can't see you, so that's why I asked.
Oh, my bad. Hold on.
I think your camera off? Oh.
I don't know. This is tripping out. Let's just keep going. I'll figure it out.
Okay. So again, what I was saying is your hard sell and your soft sales, your phase 2, right? This is very important because you take everything you've learned about your prospect and you basically want to either sell hard or sell soft. And you don't want to do the wrong thing, right? You could take a big risk and go hard. But if you're wrong, that recruit could shy away. It's like, oh, this guy's too aggressive. I don't like this. But if you go soft, and that's the wrong approach. You're like, man, this guy really doesn't want me here. So why am I trying so hard to come to this guy's school? He's just kind of beating around the bush. But you want to use all the information for phase 1 and help you with phase 2. And you can see that here, right? So this is a hard sell. It actually worked out really well for this guy. And then now you could see that he's unlocked more information
Right.
on the pitch that and the type of pitch that he took, right? So his pro potential was important, athletic facilities and brand exposure, all sales that he had during this phase. And then stage 3 is this is visit week, right? This is the time where the recruit's going to visit. Tim is gone again. The recruit's going to visit, and then during this phase, you're actually going to schedule what they do during their visit, right? Are they gonna get sideline passes, or like what are they going to do during this time? And very, very important that you think about play time. You think about pro potential. You think about these different things. Do you want them to attend a position meeting to help talk about their playing time? You might want them to attend practice if you want to talk about coaching prestige or whatever, right? You might want them to see the weight room if you're talking about your athletic facilities. You might want them to go on a podcast for more brand exposure to help increase that. So there's different types of things that you do during this phase, and this is during the essentially the visit phase. And that's going to also influence. And I think this is really cool. Once a guy commits, this is actually really cool. Once a guy commits, you get this like little banner thing. And I thought very, very nice ad. So this Brian McCadley guy from Baltimore, Maryland, a 4-star strong safety, commits to University of Alabama. Very, very cool. I'm very excited to see what this looks like when it actually happens. And again, because recruiting is such a hard thing to do, you want to be able to reward the gamer with what that looks like once that recruitment is complete, because it is a big deal, right? They have pictures of recruits when they commit to schools, and they're wearing the colors, they're doing all the good stuff, and that's legitimately what it's like when a player recruits. It's that big of a deal. So it's kind of to simulate that, which I thought was really cool. The next piece is transfer portal. Recruiting does not stop at the recruiting does not stop when the players sign their letter of intent, right? All the things that they've talked about that were important when there you are. All the things that recruit have talked about that was important to them when they committed to the school will continue to remain important while they're at your school. So if you promise this guy brand exposure and he's not getting brand exposure, you run the risk of this guy transferring.
Right.
And I think that's super cool. Let's see, just like recruits, player and roster also have a deal breaker, and any recruit that is a deal breaker will keep their deal breaker when they join your roster. Remember, deal breakers can be thought of as a promise between you and the player. If you fail to uphold your end of the deal, there is a chance that they leave in the offseason. The corresponding my school grade failing below the threshold does not guarantee that they will decide to leave. The probability of a player transferring after their deal breaker has been violated is driven by their overall, with higher overall players being more likely to transfer. So, again, it is not the end all be. It is just because they committed to your school and they're there. It's not. It's not done there, right? That guy could still decide to transfer, and then when you get there, you get to this players leaving, and you can see why these guys are leaving. This guy's getting drafted in the second round. That's Damian Martinez. But then Basante and Larson are like, bro, you promised me playing time, and so I'm out of here.
Yeah, that is the most interesting thing because, again, you can get lost in the shuffle trying to rebuild your team and then forget to keep those promises, whether it be a brand deal, whether it's to get a player on the field. You could honestly forget, and if you forget, you run the risk of transferring. The thing is, do you have the archetype selected enough to keep that player motivated to stay around, even though they're not getting, the type of play that they want? Even though you broke the deal breaker, do you have the archetype to where you can still get that one opportunity to persuade them to stay? That all is a very, very important thing.
Yep.
So it's the devil is in the details. You have to pay attention to what's going on at the school. You still have to basically actively recruit your players, and that's one thing that Sark would always talk about throughout the year, is that he continues to actively recruit his players throughout the year, even though they're on the roster, even though they've been there for a while. He still makes it a point to sit down and talk to all of his players, to make sure that they're good and to make sure that they're in the same, on the same page. So I think that's really dope that they added this piece in, because also, you may lose a player. That also gives you an opportunity to jump in that transfer portal to maybe get a player, to fill that hole that you might have lost.
Yep.
So that is very, very important to just kind of follow up on those things, man. It's really, really dope. I'm really excited about this game.
This piece of it is going to be very interesting to see it play out. And the transfer portal kind of works the same way as recruiting. But they wanted to make it authentically unpredictable. Begins with players leaving. Some schools may face a mass exodus of players, while others may be left untouched. Once all players have decided whether to stay or go, transfer portal will officially open at the start of the offseason recruiting period. So, but you only get 4 weeks, I believe. So it starts at the beginning of the offseason recruiting period, and then it ends on National Signing Day.
Right.
And it works the exact same way as recruiting from there, but you get a much less opportunity and a little bit less amount of time. And this is what the transfer portal looks like. It very, very cool. It shows who they are, if they're a position need for you, what their transfer portal rating is, if they're a 4-star, 5-star, 3-star. So for example, it sounds like a guy could come in as a 4 or 3-star guy, but by the time that season ends, he becomes a 4-star guy.
Right.
In the transfer portal. That's a realistic thing to happen. Or he could have been a 5-star guy. He could have been a 5-star guy and he didn't perform very well or whatever might have happened. He decides to transfer and he's only going in as a 3-star guy. Right. And they have their own rankings for these guys. 28 nationally, 2 state, 4 in the position. And this guy's deal breaker is he wants to go to a championship contender. And if you don't have that, you'll get locked out.
Right. Also, one of the other things is that we also need to pay attention is how short that window is when you have a player or when you have when the transfer portal is open. So you can't just jump in there and think you got all day. You really got to jump in there and make some really important decisions based on what you do and what you don't have. You can't just go in swinging for the fences because that's not going to work out for you.
Yeah, no, absolutely. And then again, kind of like recruiting, you'll be able to see not only does it say signed, but it will say, you'll have like the normal tags here, right? But it'll also give like this really cool graphic once a player signs with you. And I think that, again, just something that's an extra cool thing. And then, of course, this is cool. You'll also have your top classes for the year. I think if I remember correctly, the top classes now include not just recruits, but transfers as well.
That's awesome.
If I'm not, I think I either read or I heard that somewhere.
That's awesome.
Throughout the
you can completely suck recruiting, but you can clean up in the transfer portal.
Yep.
If you're able to pull it off.
Yeah. Top classes, it says it right here. Top classes allows you to view the team recruiting rankings for high school prospect transfers or combined. So you can do it individually or you can do it combined. You can also filter the rankings by conference, which is something you were able to do in the old game as well.
Right.
And of course you can see here, this is the national and then the overall. So Texas, of course, because we're just that great at recruiting, 7 5-stars, 17 4-stars. Looks like a not so great year.
That sounds about right. That sounds about maybe 5 5-stars and like 20.
I mean, that's our reality here potentially in a couple months.
Yeah.
We could have 6 or 7 5-stars. Like that's a reality.
That would be crazy.
So this
ranked number 5 in next year's in the upcoming class. Did you know we're ranked number 5?
For 2025?
Yes.
Oh, we are?
Yes, we're ranked number 5.
Arogpo commit?
Oh, you know what? I did not. I did not look at that. I will have to reevaluate that. I was going based off of
Like
last week.
13.
We
Oh,
jumped.
okay. So
We
then that
jumped
must have
from
been after the commit then.
right. We jumped from 13. We jumped into the top 5 after
Of course
that
we
one
did.
weekend that we had a bunch of commits to come in, and we still got the Saturday is gonna be a head scratcher. Still nervous
Yeah.
about Saturday. So
Big. I think there's one on. I think there's one on Friday too. So we'll have to keep an eye out on that. The 5th and the 6th. I think I saw. I know. I know. I know. Little John is going to be on Saturday.
yeah, that's
So
the one. That's the one I'm worried about right there.
yeah. A lot of the stuff hasn't changed a lot. Player progression's kind of the same. Happens throughout the season, but the biggest pieces of the off season. So we don't need to go through that. Um, 4 development traits: normal, impact, star, elite. I thought this was really cool.
Very, very dope.
Um, uh, I don't really. So skill groups is interesting to me. I think basically what this means is basically like you can, if you were to like, let's just say you improve the rating of a player and the skill group is power. Within that skill group, it basically, and that's how you get like toughness, injury, strength, gym, stiff arm, and trucking for that particular skill group. So
Right.
these are the skill groups that you can increase by, and then that's what attributes within that skill group are impacted by that skill group. So it's just another way to break it down. Mental, physical abilities, of course. I think it said somewhere that you cannot change what's here. Yeah, Dynasty players cannot upgrade their mental abilities. So if a player does not come in as a freshman with a particular mental ability, there's no way for them to earn that progression.
Man,
Awesome. I love that. I think that's great. It keeps each player unique, which is what they are.
right.
Impact players, this was cool. There's no limit on the amount of impact players you can have on your team.
I don't like this.
I love it.
I don't like this.
It's very realistic.
No, it's not. No,
So you're telling me that there's not a single team that can have multiple impact players.
There's a single team that can have multiple impact players. Now, this is coming from a guy that plays Ultimate Team. I hate this. And the reason is
how they use. I think Ultimate Team's a little bit different.
Ultimate Team is basically the same as franchise mode. So here's why I don't like this. Once to me, and this is gonna sound a little crazy, and it took me over the last month and a half of me playing, really getting back into Ultimate Team because I was kind of over it when as we've been getting closer, but I've been needing that fix. So I've been playing Ultimate Team. To line up against a team, and again, like when I stopped playing Ultimate Team, I was like a 94, is pretty much as high as you could possibly get at that time. So this is like the top of January. Again, I started playing pretty much after the Super Bowl, like kind of getting back in it. Right now, my team is 99 overall. Just because I added a kicker, it was 98 for the longest, but I added a better kicker because I would like to keep Pat McAfee there. But if you don't have the 99 kicker in there and the 99 punter in there, you can't get the 99. Whatever. Anyway, when playing against other players, especially, there are some overpowering things in Ultimate Team. I don't necessarily know we don't know what these traits are going to be, but like, for instance, there's a trait called Vanguard.
Yep.
Where basically your offensive lineman, especially if he's over like a 220-pound mark or the 215-pound mark, like, and certain wide receivers can get it too, where it's called the honorary offensive lineman, where they basically just become bulldozers. And I don't want to see that. I don't want to see that from it. This is what I feel, and this is me kind of going off on a tangent. In college football and in the pros, not everybody is special. I think that you need to have about 4 to 5 players that are the special guys. Everything else is up for grabs. I don't like seeing this that we see right here. Can you zoom in on that? So you have okay. So basically, the entire offensive line, with the exception of the center and the right tackle,
Mm.
are like are beasts. We expect that from a Georgia team.
Well, not necessarily, right? So impact player is just meaning that they meet the second level development trait. So they could. So some of these guys might only be impact players. Some of these guys might be elite. Some of them might be whatever that third level is, right?
But what I'm getting at is that at the end of the day, what used to be special about college football is that you did have one or two impact players that made a difference. And I understand the pecking order now, but to me, it gets to a point. Somebody in the community and how things are going now, somebody's going to find a way to abuse this system that they have right now. And that's
Yeah,
what I don't want to happen.
I think the thinking is that in real life, in actual college football, there are guys that are different levels of impact players.
Correct. I agree with that.
And I think I think the key to this is going to be make sure that they are tuning all the abilities correctly as time goes on to make sure that no one ability is more impactful than the other. Because unless you get all of these guys to the elite version of those abilities or the gold version of those abilities, and even if they're the gold version, it's not like Madden where anytime that specific thing triggers, it happens. It's still, they have the ability, but it doesn't work every single time. And I think that's the balance where that balance
I do remember that being a focal point.
So I think that's
this last deep dive, but the first deep dive. I do remember that. I just hope that it doesn't get to a point because, like, man, I could show you clips and I can post them online and I could show you just me just literally mauling offensive linemen, just
I'm seeing
absolutely just mauling defensive linemen. Now, the thing that sticks out is like, okay, an offensive lineman is probably gonna wipe out a corner. If he's 350, that makes sense, right?
Yeah.
But just completely have a fullback just completely blow a defensive end or a defensive tackle just off his feet is crazy. And I'm only saying that from perspective. Like, have I seen offensive linemen completely decleat a defensive lineman? Yes. But just the entire team just mow a defense down, I don't want to see that. I don't. If it's a bigger team or if it's a bigger school playing a smaller school, I completely understand that. I'm trying to be logical, but not like illogical. I just want to see. I don't want to see an imbalance in the game based on abilities.
I think it's gonna have to come down to them tuning the abilities correctly. I think all this is saying is that there's different levels of impacts, which is why you could have impact players. Because level 2 of a player is impact, right? That doesn't mean that all these players are elite. Now, those are only good. And I think I think it even color codes them here, if I'm not mistaken. I'd have to zoom in. Oh, it doesn't. Okay. It does say, however, unlike the past, there's no limit. Explosive offensive players with playmakers everywhere might have 5 or 6 impact players across the board, letting you know straight up that they got dudes and are about to cook. Okay. I think this right here still is in play. So even though they're an impact player, they can change a team. They'll progress faster than normal, but they're not going to be the best of the best. Because the best of the elite is still the best of the best.
Right.
But the difference between elite and impact is going to be what's going to be interesting to look at. Even though there's all these impact players, if these guys are just impact and this guy's the elite guy, then he should be significantly better than these guys. And their attributes might all be different. They might not have the same attributes.
Okay. So my thing is
the attributes one of these guys could have is different from this guy. And maybe he has a silver version of it. Maybe he has a gold version of it. That's still possible.
Okay.
And I think that's where the balance comes in. But I don't think we really know how it's going to work out.
Understood. So to kind of close this out, because I know we got other things that we have to attend to. What are your overall, and we could continue on at a later time. Maybe we part two it up. I don't necessarily know what you got going on, Reese, but maybe we could continue on, later on this week, maybe tomorrow. I don't necessarily know, but because there's a lot to cover. This took me about, I don't know about you, but to actively read it and continue on throughout my day, took me about a 3-hour read.
That sounds about right. I'm probably about 3/4. We're probably about 3/4 of the way through. So that's us not reading everything. So we got pretty far.
But before we close out here, what question I have for everybody is, what is your initial reaction? Like, how are you feeling now that you have this information in front of you? I think this is everything that we've talked about over the years collectively. And I think this is just kind of what we've been dreaming about for a long period of time. And we're finally seeing it put together, from my opinion. So what are you thinking?
Yeah, I think kind of the same thing. I think it's just excitement that it's here. Finally seeing the Dynasty deep dive. It's everything I'd hoped for and more.
Right.
It is everything that I was expecting out of what they provided for us and more.
Okay. Yeah, I'm right along with you.
So, but yeah, game comes out 2 weeks from today, early release. So we'll see what happens. We are officially 2 weeks away from the game releasing. So, all right, Tim, we've got to get out of here. Before we get out of here, where can the people find you?
You can find me at Tim Wayne. Again, let's talk college football. It's here, whether you guys like it or not. Again, please make sure that you follow all of our social media channels. We do plan on doing a giveaway. I plan on posting some information here very soon on the rules. But again, make sure you guys like, share, comment, and subscribe. It really helps out your chances. If you are a person that gets picked and you're not following any of the channels, or if you're following one but not the other, unfortunately, you won't be able to win. So guys, continue to show your support. We appreciate it. We do this because we love it. We do this because we knew in our hearts that this was eventually going to happen again. We heard rumblings while at EA, didn't necessarily know, and it finally came, and it's finally here. So I'm forever grateful that this game has come out. It has established a lot of friendships, including this one that you see in front of you. This guy's like my brother right here, and we bonded through sports and video games, man. And so I really do. It is a really good time to, again, be a video gamer, and a sports video gamer at that. And based on what I'm seeing and from what we're seeing from these influencers and these guys that have opportunities to play the game, and the next time that I do get an opportunity to take advantage of that, I'm going to do it. I just was in a real tricky spot at that time, kind of found out last minute, and you kind of got to just, if they give you the green light to go, you just got to go. You just got to sign up and go. So
for sure.
Next time I will take advantage of that. And yeah, man, let's just, it's almost here, man. It's 2 weeks away, baby. 2 weeks away.
Yes, sir. As always, you find me at the Uncle Gandhi. We'll talk more about this game. We'll probably spend a good chunk of the podcast on it this week. By the way, go SEC. We out of here. Peace.
SEC. Uncle.
Go home, touchdown like a